So, with it being Mental Health Awareness Week, I thought I'd speak a bit briefly about mental health, and I wanted to just share a list of symptoms, quite a lengthy list, but not an all encompassing list. Just see whether maybe you have any of these symptoms, anyone you know has any of these symptoms, and then I will share what the root cause of these symptoms may actually be. Because from my experience, obviously there's a lot of awareness around mental health, but there's not necessarily a lot of awareness or education, information on what may actually be the cause of these symptoms. So, this is like quite a lengthy list, but like I said, it's not all encompassing. There are other symptoms. So, early symptoms that begin to show up at the same time or shortly after those we just talked about can include hypervigilance, so being on guard at all times, intrusive imagery or flashbacks, extreme sensitivity to light and sound, hyperactivity, exaggerated emotional and startle responses, nightmares and night terrors, abrupt mood swings, including rage reactions or temper tantrums, frequent anger or crying, shame and lack of self-worth, reduced ability to deal with stress, easily and frequently stressed out, difficulty sleeping. Several of these symptoms can also show up later, even years later. Remember, this list is not for diagnostic purposes. It's a guide to help you to get a feel for how symptoms behave. The next symptoms that appear are panic attacks, anxiety and phobias, mental blankness or spaced out feelings, avoidance behavior, so avoiding places, activities, movements, memories or people, attraction to dangerous situations, addictive behaviors such as overeating, drinking, smoking, etc. It could also be, for example, like sex and even exercise, excessive exercising stuff. Exaggerated or diminished sexual activity, amnesia or forgetfulness, inability to love, nurture or bond with other individuals, fear of dying or having a shortened life, self-mutilation, so severe abuse, self-inflicted, cutting, etc., loss of sustaining beliefs, spiritual, religious or interpersonal. The final group of symptoms are those that generally take longer to develop. In most cases, they may have been preceded by some of the earlier symptoms. However, there is no fixed rule that dictates when and if a symptom will appear. This group includes excessive shyness, diminished emotional responses, inability to make commitments, chronic fatigue or very low physical energy, immune system problems and certain endocrine problems such as thyroid malfunction and environmental sensitivities. Psychosomatic illnesses, particularly headaches, migraines, neck and back problems, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, asthma, skin disorders, digestive problems, in brackets spastic colon, severe premenstrual syndrome, depression and feelings of impending doom, feelings of detachment, alienation and isolation, living dead feelings, reduced ability to formulate plans. So that's quite a large list of symptoms, which is obviously will come under mental health. And what I want to share is because this is actually a book on healing trauma by Peter Levine. The book is called Healing Trauma. And I've got a lot of his books. Excuse me. Nope, it's not coming yet. Another is In an Unspoken Voice. This is extremely good. How the Body Releases Trauma and Restores Goodness. Basically, the root cause of these symptoms is trauma. It's a traumatic experience or multiple traumatic experiences. And trauma is subjective. So someone can experience a certain situation the same as another person. However, one person might find it traumatic and the other person will not. And basically, trauma is the situation and it creates a stress response. So if you heard obviously of post-traumatic stress disorder, it's the stress from that experience that's still within your body, you're still replaying it, it's still present within your nervous system, and this affects you physically, mentally, emotionally. But you can heal from trauma, you can release the stress, you can restore your body back to goodness. So I think it's essential that people know that actually a lot of these mental health issues are not necessarily just mental, because when I've been to talk therapy myself, I actually found that it was very ineffective, and I then tended to try. Well, my story, I went to Peru and worked with plant medicines, and I actually experienced releasing trauma from my body then, and then within that retreat I attended trauma workshops, and I came to realize that that's what I'd experienced. So I think it's important for people to understand that actually it may be a traumatic experience, which is then the stress is stuck in the body, they're still replaying this experience somatically and mentally and whatever, but it can be healed. You don't have to deal with your mental health. It can actually be healed. And I'm going to go in a lot more depth into this, but I just wanted to share obviously those symptoms. And I also wanted to share an extremely brief list of possible situations that people can find traumatic. And there was, within this book, The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. I'll put links to these books in the description. I haven't reread over this, but I'm sure it mentions something in this about even children that's parents divorce under the age of 7. That can be traumatic, and that's actually what I've experienced myself. But I just wanted to quickly share some things that lawnmower is going on in the background. So obvious cases of trauma include war, severe childhood emotional, physical or sexual abuse, neglect, betrayal or abandonment during childhood, experiencing or witnessing violence, rape, catastrophic injuries and illnesses. And then there's a list of less obvious potential causes of trauma, which include minor automobile accidents, even fender benders, especially those that result in whiplash, invasive medical and dental procedures, particularly when performed on a child who is restrained or anesthetized. The use of ether increases the chance of trauma. For adults, many medical procedures, such as pelvic exam, can be experienced as an attack, even if rationally we know that they are necessary and helpful. Falls and other so-called minor injuries, especially when children or elderly people are involved. For example, a child falling off a bicycle. And I've experienced that as well myself. When I was skiing, snowboarding, I went to grind on a rail, fell off, hit my head, and it was concussed, woke up. It was as if I'd just woken up from a dream or a sleep halfway through a pile of chips. Couldn't remember anything, and that really scared me. And then when I was doing some of Peter Levine's somatic experience in work, I was lying in bed one night trying to do this therapy, and I just had this jolt back as if I was falling, and this memory flashed back up of me when I was snowboarding. So yeah. Natural disasters, including earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, fires and floods. Illness, especially where there's a high fever or accidental poisoning. Being left alone, especially in young children and babies. Prolonged immobilization, especially in children. Casting, splinting for long periods used for scoliosis or turned in feet. Exposure to extreme heat or cold, especially in children and babies. Sudden loud noises, especially in children and babies. Birth stress for both mother and infant. Yeah, so you can have experienced trauma. I know how to talk. Experienced trauma from even your birth. Your birth can be traumatic, and that can be replaying throughout your life. But also because trauma is stressful on the body, then this stress can actually impact you physically in terms of like your glands, your adrenal glands, and they will shut down, which then shut down your kidneys, which then I'll go into this in another video, but then the lymphatic waste's not filtering, and then you'll start to experience more physical problems and diseases. So it's important to release the stress from your body, but also to restore your body physically in terms of like your adrenal glands, because if your adrenals are down, you will also be experiencing some of these symptoms like anxiety, depersonalization, dissociation, premature ejaculation, and a number of things. And your adrenals produce neurotransmitters and hormones. So if your adrenals are down, they're not producing these, and then this affects you as well. So it's all interrelated. It's all fractal. Like nothing can be separated. So Mental Health Awareness Week, and this is what I'm focused on, is bringing awareness and education to people, to the root causes of things and how to actually heal things, not just learning to deal with things, to live with things and to cover things up. I don't think anything has to be. You don't have to learn how to like live with something. You can heal everything. So take it as you will. The links to these few books, but there's so much more from these authors and a lot more authors, which I'm going to share more. But they'll be in the description below on YouTube. So check them out.